Brawlhalla is an extremely balanced game relative to other fighting games. I mean, the easiest game to compare Brawlhalla to is the Super Smash Bros. Series, and even just simply looking at the pro tier list that people make for both of these games, it's pretty damn obvious Brawlhalla is in a more balanced state. Unlike in most of the Super Smash Bros. Games, every character in Brawlhalla is viable. Even characters like Magyar, who is consistently thought of as one of the worst legends in the game, has still won a major tournament. This is one of the best parts about Brawlhalla. You can get away with playing any character at a competitive level. But this doesn't come without its drawbacks. In Brawlhalla's current state, I would argue it's probably the most balanced it's been in a very long time. And the devs seem to agree. Over the past roughly 1.5 years, while balance patch frequency hasn't really slowed down, the actual contents of these balance patches are just so safe. A couple of years ago, balance patches used to be genuinely exciting. I remember sitting in study hall at school and checking out the balance patch right when it dropped. New true combos would get added, actually impactful force adjustments would be made. Hell, even the nerfs. While nerfs never really make a weapon more fun, at least stuff like removing the Gauntlets 3-piece was, I don't know, committal? As of late, however, all we get are these rinky-dinky risk-free 1 damage nerfs and meaningless force changes that, sure, they add up over time, but they don't actually make the gameplay any different. The meta has been the same for the past year and a half, none of the weapons actually feel any different, and in my opinion, I think the game could use a bit of shifting around. So in this video, I'm going to propose all the changes that I would make to Brawlhalla in its current state. Now, a couple things to take note of before we get into this. For one, these are the changes I would make purely for high-level play, meaning well past Diamond. Stuff like Lance, while it completely dominates lower ranks, it's arguably slightly underwhelming at higher ranks, and I might consider buffing it. Additionally, I'm mostly basing on these changes around 1v1, because 2v2 meta is kinda complicated and I don't really play 2s. Number 2, this video is inherently biased. I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible and take in stuff like tournament results and other opinions, but for the most part, this video is just my thoughts on what should be adjusted in this game. And finally, balance is hard, man. Might make a few mistakes here and there, and I guarantee some of you will flame me in the comments for bringing up or not bringing up a proposed change. Oh well, it's my channel. Alright, with that out of the way, let's start with the weapon balance. Quick note, Brawlhalla did actually drop a new balance patch as I was making this video, but as you would expect, it's a bunch of nothing burger changes. The only somewhat significant changes in this patch are the nerfs to Axe, Sidelight Nair, Hammer, Sair, and Scythe, and the sword buff. Even then, these changes are exactly what I was talking about. Slight damage nerfs, force nerfs, and minor frame data adjustments. That shit is lame, and doesn't address the fundamental flaws with how these weapons are played. So even with this whole new patch that just dropped, everything I say in this video still applies. I think a lot of weapons in this game need more rework type changes to favor more interesting playstyles, rather than flat out buffs and nerfs. So that's why I tried to focus on this video. Sorry for the hold up, let's get into it. We're going to run through each of these in alphabetical order here, starting off with Axe. Axe happens to be the weapon that I might change the most in this theoretical patch here. Axe is one of those weapons that has just never been bad. It's gotten consistently nerfed for the past like 2 years, and yet it feels like it hasn't shifted in power whatsoever. So I think it's about time this weapon is hit with something a little more drastic, other than these lame ass air acceleration changes. Brawlhalla just seems to love throwing at it for some reason. Here's what I propose. Axe end like gets +1 frame of startup and end lag, Axe deal like gets +2 frames of end lag, Axe grounded dare gets -1 frame of stun at 3 decks, Axe side like gets +1 frame of stun, and Axe Sair gets -1 frame of startup. There's a lot to digest here, so let's just start with the main reason for these changes. Sidelight Sair. A couple of years ago this combo was removed from Axe, and I always kinda wished it hadn't gone anywhere. You see, some combos in this game add depth and strategy, while others kind of narrow it. An example of a combo that limits strategy would be the old Gauntlets 3-piece I mentioned before. This was also removed a few years ago, and I think that's for the better of the game. This combo did like 50 damage and could kill with recovery, meaning the win condition for Gauntlets was just spam the hell out of it. With it gone, however, I would say Gauntlets promotes a lot more creativity in how it's played. Axe Sidelight Sair is the opposite. This is not a combo you can simply spam over and over and win the game with. Axe Sidelight is one of the slowest light attacks in the entire game, and in order to even hit the combo true, you need to land the Sidelight extremely close to your character for the move to send low enough. The reward for doing this, however, is obviously a super powerful kill combo that can kill really well. This is good for the game. The current axe meta right now is boring as shit. If you watch pros like Kaina, it's just chip your opponent down with N-Light, Aerials, and D-Light, and punish with Sidelight and Air. Eventually, when they're low enough, you try to land a Sair or Recovery, or just swap weapons entirely. If Sidelight Sair was in the game, there would be a lot more risk-reward potential in landing Sidelights when your opponent is super low. You could either throw out the move Grounded and try to land it super close, or my favorite was when people would GC the move to hit the top part of an opponent's hitbox, which allows you to cover way more distance and land the combo true. The downside, of course, being that if you miss this shit, you're basically guaranteed to be punished hard. Sidelight Sair, I think, is just good for the weapon to have. So, by adding a frame of stun to Sidelight and removing a frame of startup from Sair, the combo is now true. Obviously though, Axe is in no position for a buff, so to counteract this change, N-Light gets +1 frame of startup and end lag, and D-Light gets +2 frames of end lag. I would give D-Light +1 frame of startup as well, but this affects some true combos like Nair D-Light at 6 decks and Dare D-Light at 4 decks, which I think are good for the weapon to have. N-Light doesn't have any true combos anyways. And finally, Axe Grounded Dare is getting -1 frame of stun at 3 decks. This is purely to remove Dare D-Light from the 3 decks Axe characters. The 3 decks Axe characters are some of the most dominating characters with a weapon, so I think it's fair to give them a minor nerf like this. So, in summary, I would give Axe a rework / slight nerf to encourage a more risk-reward type playstyle, instead of the boring ass chip damage type playstyle. Goddamn, that was a lot of explaining, but that was definitely a bit of an outlier. Blasters is next in line, and a few months ago, I probably would propose something a little more drastic. With the recent rework, however, where Sidelight is now a setup move, I think Blasters is a lot of fun. This rework is still on the newer end, so I think it's a bit hard to tell how good this weapon is currently, but personally, I don't think there's anything I would really change at this moment. Moving on, we got Bow, and once again, I don't think I'm really changing this one. I talk a lot of shit about Bow players in my videos, mainly Koji and Kaya, because quite frankly, a lot of high-level Bow players just don't do anything interesting. Still though, I think this weapon has a lot that can be done with it. Juggling people with Nair, N-Light, and Recovery is the main thing it's good at, but I also love how impactful Dare and Ground Pound feel to land, and how versatile Side Air is. This makes me think that there might be a potential change similar to the Axe rework I just proposed, to kind of encourage a more aggressive and interesting playstyle. But honestly, I don't have any ideas for that currently. The weapon's fine, it's fun to play, sometimes fun to play against. There is one minor change I would like to make to it though. I always felt like Grounded Dare had a pretty misleading animation, so I would adjust the visual animation of it to be a little more in line with the hitbox. Other than that, I know this is kind of straying off topic slightly at this point, but if Bow ever were to be in a weak state, which it definitely is not in right now, I think a cool buff idea would be to give Dare and N-Light splash hitboxes on the wall. That could lead to some interesting gameplay. But yeah, that's all I got for Bow. Battle Boots is next. This is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. I love the different use of active input where it changes where you end up rather than where your opponent ends up, like with Scythe. The combos flow super well and it feels different from other weapons. This weapon is just fun as hell, and I don't think it really needs to be changed right now. Sometimes it can be frustrating to play against, but it's kind of the same frustration as with Scythe, where there's not really any amount of nerfs that can eliminate that. The root problem with this frustration is just getting sauced up by any weapon is never fun, and Battle Boots just happens to be a weapon with a lot of sauce. Battle Boots is in a great spot. Finally, a weapon I would actually consider making changes to. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, Brawlhalla is in an extremely balanced state right now, and I genuinely don't think any weapon in here is in need of a buff. But, in my opinion, part of the purpose of having frequent balance patches is to shift things up in the meta, and the fact of the matter is, nobody plays cannon at a high level. It's not that the weapon is bad, like, every now and then I'll play someone who can completely whoop my ass on cannon, and there are pro players who see success with cannon. It's just simply not popular. So, I would propose a moderate buff to cannon. Cannon Dare gets -1 frame startup and -2 frames end lag. Now, this is where people might come and flame me. Here's the thing. Currently, the best thing Cannon has going for it is its crazy 5-hit 0 to death off like one read. This combo is extremely fun to land, so I don't want to nerf it or remove it altogether, but it's also extremely annoying to get hit by, so I don't want to directly buff it either. Instead, I think a strong buff to Cannon Dare like this would not discourage players from utilizing the crazy cannon reads, but it would maybe encourage people to be a little more aggressive with Cannon Dare. I think encouraging aggression in any way is always a good idea with balance patches. One of the most annoying ass things at high level is playing against the people who dash dance around you and literally refuse to hit the attack button until you whiff. Not that cannon is really a weapon that's super affected by this playstyle, that's more in the business of weapons like spear and Katars, but still, it's always a good thing to discourage in my opinion. By decreasing Cannon Dare's startup and recovery time, it would be easier to throw out safer approaches with this weapon, promoting people to actually attack first. I also think Cannon Dare is just a really fun move, so I'd be curious as to what kind of sick-ass off-stage plays people can make with this change. But yeah, dude, that's what I do to Cannon. Not gonna lie, this weapon is way too new for me to have an opinion on. I don't play it, no one else really plays it, and it's already been nerfed in the most recent balance patch. All I know is that it was broken as hell in the most recent tournament, and that has really annoying juggle combos. I think the most recent patch covered most of that though, so let's just move on. Next up is Gauntlets, another weapon that has just never really been bad in the history of this game. Doesn't necessarily mean it's overpowered though. I think Gauntlets is an extremely well-designed weapon. It rewards aggression, there's a lot of depth and mechanical skill involved with it, and it's fun as hell. As such, I think the main reason this weapon remains so prevalent at high-level play is because it's a popular weapon, not because it's overpowered. So with this in mind, this is the one change I would make to Gauntlets. Nair gets -1 frame of stun. The only significant interaction difference this would have is making Nair GCN light no longer true. Now, I'm still kind of on the fence with this one. Gauntlets is really fun and really popular. Nobody likes when their weapons lose true combos. It feels bad in the moment, but I think sometimes these changes actually end up making the weapons more fun. Once again, we're bringing up the Gauntlets 3-piece example. When this combo was removed, I remember people being pissed. It was a huge nerf, and it forced players to actually go for reads off D-Light Nair. Also, it made Sidelight Nair D-Light fast fallable as a side effect, which only nerfed the weapon further. Now honestly, I kinda liked when Nair D-Light couldn't be fast falled. Sure it was one-dimensional, but I don't know. Getting a Nair read now rarely ever converts to a strong punish. But to add Nair D-Light would mean that Gauntlets would receive a much unneeded buff, so I just don't think it's worth it. Goes to show that nerfing weapons isn't as simple as just removing combos or adding them. You gotta think about it more. I think removing Nair GCN light as a true combo would promote more creativity in this weapon. Currently, you're an idiot if you land Nair on stage and don't end light. It's literally free damage. But if this weren't an option, players are opened up to a lot more kinda flowchart paths to read and punish. Other than that, that's about all I got for Gauntlets. Balancing this weapon is a complete nightmare. Greatsword has always kind of had this cult following of a few players, and for the longest time, these players would swear on their life that the weapon was ass. Meanwhile, everyone who didn't play the weapon said it was OP. And what do you know? BCX 2024 rolls around, and Greatsword wins the entire damn event. So, earlier this year, a pretty hefty nerf was issued out to Greatsword, and that's where the weapon stands now. Now honestly, I think this weapon is pretty fun to play. It has its optimal strings like end light, down light, end light that every Greatsword player spams, but it's also got a lot of these niche but super effective uses for other tools in its kit. For example, if you read a spot dodge at the very edge of a long stage and do a jump, chase dodge down, down light, you get a guaranteed 7-hit string. Like, that shit is so unbelievably specific, but it offers a super nice reward for players who go for a risk like that. But while this weapon does have a bunch of cool things like that, it's also got a lot of annoying shit. For instance, after a sidelight, if your opponent dodges, doing a dash end light reversed or forward is just a 50-50 read on where they'll dodge. That's stupid. 50-50 reads are not fun to play against. So yeah, all that to say, I don't really have any idea what I would do to this weapon. Similar to Chakram, it's been nerfed too recently to really see where it stands, and honestly, Use is a great player, and I don't think he's carried by Greatsword or anything, but high-level Greatsword can be a fucking snooze fest to watch, so I wouldn't mind this weapon laying low for a little longer. Moving on, we got Hammer, which is in my opinion the best weapon in the game right now. As such, I would issue out a nerf to this weapon, but before we get into the changes I'd make, I need y'all to understand something. Hammer is objectively the best weapon for killing in this game. That is its thing. This weapon has 5 moves on stage that can reliably kill, and 2 moves off stage. This is significantly more than any other weapon in the entire game. Take a weapon like Katars for instance. This weapon has 1 move that can reliably kill on stage, and 2 that can reliably kill off stage. So clearly, to keep Hammer from instantly being the best weapon in the game, the balance philosophy with this weapon should be mediocre at building damage and good at killing. With that being said, why the hell does this weapon do so much damage? Nair does 22, Sarah does 22, Endlight does 19, Sidelight does 19. And the argument to this would be, oh, but you can't string these moves together so much. Yeah, that doesn't apply to this weapon. There are plenty of opportunities for 2 to 3 hit punishes that can do upwards of 50 damage. I just cannot believe how much damage this weapon does. So here's what I do. Hammer Nair goes from 22 to 20 damage, Hammer Sarah goes from 22 to 20 damage, Hammer Endlight goes from 19 to 18 damage, and Hammer Sidelight goes from 19 to 17 damage. Surprisingly, Hammer's other moves are pretty moderate with the damage they do. Dare does 16, Recovery does 16, Ground Pound is 25, but that's one of the slowest non-signature attacks in the game, so that's fine. Yeah man, not much else to say here. I think Hammer's a lot of fun, and the frame data feels great. It literally just does too much damage. Katars is my personal favorite weapon in this game. In my opinion, Katars is interesting because it simultaneously has one of the lowest skill floors in the game, while also having one of the highest skill ceilings in the game. If you play the basic style of just doing dare reads off sidelight, D-light, and half-piping your opponent, this is deadass one of the easiest weapons to hit diamond with. Once you get deeper into diamond, however, the amount of depth this weapon has, it's actually beautiful, man. Even despite having no active input or special mechanic, every single one of Katars' 8 attacks flows into each other so well that there is just so much room for skill expression. I love this weapon, man, but there is one tiny change I would make to it. Recovery gets +2 stun frames, and Exhausted Recovery gets +2 startup frames. This is extremely minor, but all these changes are intended to do is bring back Recovery D-Light at 0% for 6 Dex Katar characters. Probably more than 99% of you watching have never once thought about this combo in your entire life. And don't get it twisted, it is not an important combo whatsoever. But I absolutely love the idea of these tiny knowledge check combos where knowing a lot about the game gives you the slightest advantage. This combo is exactly that. If you play 6 Dex Katars and you land a recovery as the first or second move, you get a guaranteed extra 10 damage from D-Light. Additionally, I think adding in more minor Dex reliant combos like this is a good idea in general. Dex is by far the worst stat in the game, so having a few exclusive combos like this being in the game, I think is a great thing for balance amongst different legends. Now, Dex has definitely had a few moments where it was absolutely broken, such as when 9 Dex Linfei had Dare, Sidelight, D-Light true, and Recovery true. That is insane, but small things like Recovery D-Light I think are great. By the way, the nerf to Exhausted Recovery is specifically so that 9 Dex does not get Recovery true. Moving on, we got Lance. This weapon is notoriously overpowered in lower ranks, but as soon as you make it to like high plat or diamond, it's basically just any other weapon. Still, while I would consider it balanced in its current state, I think it's in a similar situation to Axe where it could use a slight rework. Matter of fact, Lance honestly needs a fairly large rework. To be completely honest, man, Lance fell off. The meta with this weapon has shifted so much towards spamming these boring ass neutral moves like Nair, Endlight, and D-Light instead of the actual cool stuff the weapon has to offer. I mean, think about it. Back in like 2018, Lance would always have these sick ass clips of Kostelix carrying people off the map and stuff. Nowadays, Lance is basically extinct in high level 1s play, and those who do play it, just play it in this boring ass way. Kostelix really is the Lance GOAT, man. We need more of that. So, this is easily my hottest take of the video, but here's what I would propose. Sidelight gets +1 frame of stun, Nair goes from 16 to 14 damage with +2 frames of end lag on miss, Endlight goes from 17 to 16 damage, and D-Light goes from 17 to 14 damage. Sidelight Sarah and Sidelight Recovery should be true on this weapon. Let me explain. Scythe especially provides so much opportunity for Lance players to actually put themselves in the situation to do something cool. It allows you to reliably get your opponent off stage in situations that Sidelight Dare and Sidelight Nair simply cannot do. Sure, sometimes you can get an up dodge read off Sidelight Dare, which can lead to some offstage play, but it's not enough. The actual meta on this weapon is to do Sidelight Nair, read dodges with Nair, juggle with Nair, and spam the shit out of Nair. That is so unbelievably lame. Sidelight Nair provides a reliable option to push opponents off stage, encouraging people to actually hit some cool shit. As for Sidelight Recovery, I mean, if we're gonna add one kill combo, you may as well add both. I think having 4 different true combos out of Sidelight instead of just 2 provides much more opportunity to mix things up with your opponent. The way it is now, Sidelight Nair is essentially always the best play unless you land a Sidelight right at the edge of the stage. Obviously though, adding 2 kill combos to a weapon that currently has 0 is an enormous buff. So to try and counteract this, reducing the damage of Lance's main damage building moves and adding some end lag on whiff to Nair seems appropriate to me. Someone had to say it, bro. This weapon's boring as shit now. Bruh. Now I'm aware that these changes have the potential to make this weapon completely broken. I really can't underestimate just how powerful getting 2 reliable kill combos can be. So if I were the balance team, I would definitely save a change like this for after BCX. But yeah, man, that's what I got to say about Lance. Alright, taking a complete 180 away from Lance, Scythe is probably the best designed weapon in this game. Just saying that probably made some people sit up in their chair real fast, but is this really that crazy of a statement? I'm not gonna lie, if the devs didn't cook this shit up back in 2017, this game would be dead. It just would be. This weapon is so goddamn fun. I'm not even that great at it, but active input was an actual genius idea, and even with effectively 4 additional moves added due to the different move variations, everything in this kit flows so well together. There's a reason it's the most popular weapon in the game, there's a reason people enjoy watching Sandstorm or Pavelski more than Axe Pro number 99, and this game would deadass not be the same without it. At most it might need a few slight frame data tweaks or damage adjustments, but personally, I wouldn't change a thing about it currently. Another complete 180, Spear is easily one of the lamest weapons in the game. Now I'm gonna try really hard to not be biased here, but I honestly do think this weapon is a little overtuned. So let's just jump into the one change I would make here. Spear and Air active frames get reduced by 3. This change is purely to make this read less effective. I think Spear's a fundamentally flawed weapon, in the sense that it would need a significant rework, I'm talking like completely swapping up the moves, to actually be a fun design to play against. I enjoy playing Spear, don't get me wrong. I enjoy playing every weapon in this game. Stuff like the Dare and weapon throw pokers off stage, and it being the only weapon where ledge canceling downlights is actually practical, that stuff's great. But it is simply not fun to play against these giant hitboxes that catch a million reads, and if you slip up once, you get hit with a 50 damage, game-changing punish. Anyways, this Nair change will make it harder to catch dodges out of Sidelight Chase Dodge Nair. That's about it, man. This weapon makes me fucking sick. Last but not least, we got Sword. Now Sword is an interesting one, because while there are the boring ass Koji and Hattori sweats who just run away and poke at you with Endlight and Nair, there's also a lot of high level players who actually get really creative with the weapon. My favorite part about Sword at high level play has gotta be its punishes. It all revolves around hitting Sword ground pound as many times as possible after one read. This move does 22 damage, has enough stun to reliably combo into other things, and has very little end lag after a hit. The problem is, its hitbox is miniature, making it extremely difficult to actually implement in a punish. I love this, man. Deal like ground pound and all the punishes that revolve around it are some of the most mechanically intensive, but also rewarding plays in this game. This single-handedly turns Sword from a weapon that should have a super low skill ceiling into something way cooler. I think this type of stuff is super healthy for the game, and even though I'm kind of straight off topic here, I felt obligated to mention it because this is something I definitely think should stay in the game. Maybe nerfs or buffs to damage and stuff as needed, but yeah. Anyways, as for the rest of Sword's kit, there's really only one change I have in mind. Dare gets +2 stun frames, and Dare gets slightly increased variable force. These changes are made purely with these 3 combos in mind. Daylight Dare Endlight, Deal-It Dare Recovery, and Deal-It Dare Sair. I always like these combos being in the game. They're really not that hard to perform, but they reward players who can kind of recognize what health threshold their opponent's at. As of now, they are technically in the game, but by the time your opponent is actually low enough to hit them, you can already just kill them with a standard Deal-It Recovery, so it's not really practical. I don't think Sword is necessarily a bad weapon currently, but it's definitely not the best weapon in the game right now, and I think a moderate combo buff like this is fine. Just like that, that is every change I would make to every weapon in this game. Reminder, I'm not a balance dev, so some of these changes might not even be good. Nonetheless though, I am pretty happy with some of the ideas I came up with. Especially for stuff like Lance and Axe. I really feel like the dev team is steering these weapons towards just a lame-ass playstyle. Not that every weapon has to have crazy depth and stuff, but I just think this game could benefit from some more ambitious changes. I was initially going to go over some legend changes in this video as well, but honestly, I only had like 3 things that came to mind, so we'll end it here. Now, that being said, if you guys would be interested in a part 2, I wouldn't be opposed to running through each different legend in this game. As for these kinds of videos in general, expect more of them from me. I have a lot of kind of bottled up thoughts about this game that are pretty easy for me to talk about. Like, I deadass wrote this whole script at work, so I'm excited to share some other video ideas I got in mind. But yeah, that's about all I got to say. If you made it this far, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that shit. You're the reason my shit gets pushed in the algorithm, so thank you, G. More stuff like this in the future. Subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.